Okay, guys, gobekli tepe, the oldest temple on earth. Let's start.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking you deep into one of the most, well, intellectually compelling archaeological sites on Earth, Gobekli Tepe, and also the surrounding structures, this whole constellation known as Tas Tepeler in southeast Turkey.
It really is the ultimate historical paradox, isn't it? You're looking at hunter-gatherers living roughly 12,000 years ago. I mean, this is a time before agriculture, before pottery, certainly before metal.
Right, Stone Age tech.
Exactly. Yet somehow they possess the social organization, the complex knowledge, really, to build these massive monumental stone temples. And they weren't building houses or villages.
No permanent settlements.
No, they were building ritual stages, huge ones.
And our mission today is to try and decode the engine driving this. Why did these people, right there on the cusp of the Neolithic Revolution, why dedicate such vast resources to building sites that they would then intentionally bury and rebuild?
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Completely. Our sources, though, they seem to lay out a pretty complete operational model. So we're going to trace a path today, starting from the really intimate, visceral experience of someone going through the ritual.
An initiate.
Right. All the way up to the absolute highest level cosmic code they were apparently following.
And we have to understand, this wasn't just, let's say, religion in a vague sense. This looks like applied science, built fundamentally on astronomy. The core concept we're diving into is how this ancient culture synchronized human time with cosmic time.
Okay.
Performing this critical, systematic, you called it a reboot. A reboot of the world every 8 years.
A cosmic reboot. That definitely sounds like high stakes ritual management. So we have two main source categories guiding us here.
That's right. One provides more of a narrative, almost like a first-person account, detailing this 8-year ritual cycle, which they apparently call the Aaron.
The Aaron.
Okay. And the other source provides the Corinthic side, the data-driven synthesis. So the raw archaeology, the signs they carved, which are still, being deciphered, and the really rigorous archaeoastronomy that seems to prove this complexity was mathematically intentional.
It sounds like the perfect synergy then. The story gives us the why, the intense, maybe religious motivation.
It's a human experience, yeah.
And the data gives us the how, the actual mechanisms, the astronomy, and maybe even the specific date they lock their whole cosmology onto.
Exactly. It connects the human belief to the cosmic clockwork.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the experience, as you said. Section 1, the Aaron immersing in the 8-year cycle. This is where we meet this figure, Kani, an ordinary hunter apparently, whose whole life is governed by this colossal cycle.
Yeah, and the term Aaron itself is revealing. It apparently means something like, when the sky animals walk the ridgetops.
Sky animals, so constellations.
Precisely. It immediately frames the cycle as a direct link between what happens on the ground, the rituals, and what's happening up there, the celestial motion. It's a time for accounting, for renewal, and it happens roughly every 8 solar years.
And Kenny's account, it starts with the journey itself.
It does. He, his brother, the small group, they set out on a 10-day walk. Just to reach the main site, the great limestone hill we call Gobekli Tepe, or Gobek, which means belly, like the belly of the mountain.
10 days. Just walking. Think about that commitment. You're a hunter-gatherer, you're leaving your hunting grounds, traveling for 10 days just to attend a ceremony.
The commitment is huge. And the preparation isn't just physical travel. Kenny's account emphasizes these incredibly strict rules, these prerequisites for the initiates, and they really demonstrate the ritual's purpose. It's about purity, detachment, focus.
What kind of rules?
Absolute rules. For instance, no personal kill meat. You could only eat the community hunted sustenance provided at the site.
Okay, so detachment from individual success.
Exactly. Also, no laid with woman, suggesting sexual abstinence was required for purification beforehand. And maybe the most telling one, no flint tool that had tasted blood.
Wow, no blood-tasting flint. That's profound for hunter-gatherers. The very tools that define their survival, their spears, their knives, they have to be ritually cleansed or maybe even replaced just to enter this sacred space.
Precisely that. Kenny explains it very simply in the narrative.
Yeah.
The gods read your scent.
Your scent.
Yeah. If you carry the scent of personal, everyday survival, needs the blood from your hunt, maybe even sexual activity, you taint the collective cosmic effort. It shows the ritual is fundamentally about transcending the necessities of daily life to engage in this shared, higher cosmic reality.
Okay, so day 1, they finally arrive after their 10-day trek. They reach the sanctuary and face the first physical barrier, the gate of the net.
This is the Aaron Kerr, literally the net that catches time. It's described as a massive threshold stone carved with a specific grid-like sign, S12. Walking through it isn't just entering a place, it's a ceremonial passage. It changes Connie's whole perspective from the mundane world, the marshlands he came from, to the cosmic world of the hill.
And this transition, it's sealed with specific words.
Yes, the old words. The elders, sometimes described as wearing masks depicting these key animals, the snake,
Yeah.
the fox, they challenge the initiates using a special ceremonial dialect, not everyday language.
Like a ritual language.
Exactly. They ask, who brings the year? And the initiates have to respond with the inventory of the celestial players, the four-footed and the winged.
The animals in the sky.
Right. And then the critical question, perhaps about the pillars themselves, who turns it? And the response confirms the identity, the function of those giant T-pillars, the rib-boned and the ribless.
Rib-boned. So the T-pillars are seen as ancestors holding up the sky.
That seems to be the symbolism. The T-pillars are these stylized, rib-boned ancestors. The initiation requires you understand the full cast of cosmic players and their roles.
Okay, so once they're accepted, they get a physical mark.
Yes, the mark of purification, the empty stomach. Red ochre is smeared directly onto the breastbone. This is their pledge, apparently for 7 days, to ritual starvation, or at least only consuming what the sky provides, likely ritually prepared food or drink at the site. It's preparing the body for the symbolic death and rebirth that's central to the whole urine.
Intense. Which leads into night one, the bowl of first seeing. They go down into one of the enclosures.
Yes, into one of those characteristic sunken enclosures scooped out of the bedrock. Kearney calls it the Hollow of Night.
The atmosphere must have been just overwhelming. You've got the central T-pillars, taller than 2 men, looming over you in the dark.
Absolutely. And they immediately draw your attention, according to the narrative, to specific carvings. The right-hand pillar carries the H sign, S1, we'll come back to that. It seems to represent balance, the equinox. The left carries the crescent and dot S2, which marks the new year.
So the pillars themselves are like a clock face.
Exactly. This is the clock face.
Mm-hmm.
And the ritual is fundamentally about observing that clock. They spend the night watching the eastern horizon. The focus is fixed on the constellation Scorpius, which they saw as the celestial snake slowly rising above the distant ridge.
And Connie's account captures the key moment, the point of synchronization.
Yes, the red heart of Scorpius, the star we call Antares, just touches the horizon line. The moment that specific celestial point anchors to the terrestrial line, an elder strikes an obsidian gong.
Obsidian gong.
Yeah, imagine the sound, pure mineral resonance. Connie reports feeling the year actually click into place inside his own ribs at that sound.
Wow, that synchronicity, it's everything. They're creating a physical and audible event, but it's governed entirely by precise astronomical observation.
And the snake, Scorpius, in their proto-zodiac, is the key marker for the vernal equinox, the birth of the new year. That gong announces it.
But the ritual doesn't just stay at Gobekli Tepe. Day 2, they move to Karahan Tepe.
That's right, they travel to the sister site, Karahan Tepe, via a path called the Fox Track.
The Fox Track.
And the landscape itself guides the narrative here. The path is apparently carved or marked with the zigzag watermark, S8. This is the mythological sign associated with the fox, who in their stories perhaps stole or brought the rain.
So it's a transition from the snake in the sky, marking the start, to the fox, linked maybe to water, to the ground.
That seems to be the symbolic journey. And the destination at Karahan Tepe is, well, it's chilling. The phallus chamber.
Right, I've seen images. It's visually quite shocking.
It is 11 stone phalli, erected in this tight horseshoe shape, standing rigid, silent, and watched over by this carved, bearded face they supposedly call Amma, meaning something like the one who plants the sun.
And this is where the personal commitment becomes existential.
Exactly. Yeah. Connie has to kneel, alone perhaps, and whisper his oath. He has to choose.
Okay.
Either state the name of the child he intends to sire in the next 8 years,
Okay.
or state the debts he will accept if the cycle fails, or if his time comes within that period.
That choice, wow, that immediately tells you this isn't some simple, celebratory fertility cult.
Not at all. The phallus chamber is a chamber of fate, of destiny.
True.
Regeneration is explicitly coupled with the willing acceptance of mortality. The initiate is binding their own personal lifespan, their lineage, directly to the success of this 8-year cosmic cycle. It's a heavy oath.
If the cycle fails, they accept their death. If it succeeds, they guarantee their offspring. Heavy indeed. And speaking of death, night 2 involves something called the Hole of Souls, S5.
Yes. They're stripped to the waist, their ribs painted white, explicitly described as looking like winter branches, symbolizing the barrenness, the death of the old year.
Okay.
And they have to crawl through this perfectly drilled hole, a disc-shaped aperture, the soul hole, which is set into the western enclosure wall.
A specific architectural feature again.
And a precision instrument. The narrative says that as the initiates crawl through this hole, the bending bird constellation, which corresponds to Cygnus, the swan, a winter constellation, is setting in the west.
Then it lines up.
Apparently, its folded wings fit exactly into the cup, the circle, of that drilled hole as viewed from inside.
So it's symbolic portal. The initiate is physically enacting the soul's passage through the lowest point, the nadir of the sky.
Precisely. And the elder's statement, as they emerge, confirms the absolute nature of this transition. Tomorrow you will be reborn, or the sky will forget us. They have symbolically died. They've accepted the winter state of the universe.
Which sets up day 3 perfectly then, the rebirth, the sunrise of the ribcage.
Yes, they stand on the Carcacha Terrace back at Karahan Tepe, facing this massive, quite terrifying statue of the ancestor figure.
The one with the exposed ribs?
That's the one. We've seen images. It's incredibly graphic. Its chest is carved open to show every single rib, and its stone hands are clutching its phallus.
Death gripping life, the theme continues.
Exactly. And the astronomy locks in again. The solstice sun, this seems to be the summer solstice point in the ritual sequence, rises. Red ochre is flung into the air, turning the whole world blood red for a moment.
Wow.
And crucially, the shadow cast by the initiate's own white painted rib cages aligns exactly with that zigzag water line, S8, the fox sign, carved into the terrace floor.
So bone merges with rain symbolism, death merges with growth. The cycle connects.
This is the moment the commitment is sealed, visually, cosmically, and the physical proof of the cycle's success, or rather its initiation. The statue's belt is carved with 8 V symbols, S10.
8 V's.
This is the explicit, immediate declaration that the 8-year count has just successfully begun.
That detail, the V symbols, seems small, but it's actually the key, isn't it, to the whole lunisolar complexity. They are marking the start of the new cosmological clock that absolutely must be maintained for the next 8 years.
And that clock, that cycle, demands sustenance. Which brings us to night 3, the eating of the year. The initiates finally break their fast.
But not just any food.
No, only with a specific ritualized kill. A single aurochs, a wild bull, hunted beforehand by the elders, who are described as wearing a boar mask during the hunt or preparation.
A boar mask, suggesting the autumn alignment again, since the boar bull is their autumn sign.
That seems very likely. And the way they eat it is also symbolic. They eat the heart, representing spring, the liver, representing summer, the marrow from the bones, representing autumn, and they leave the empty bone, symbolizing winter.
It's like a culinary enactment of the annual cycle, internalizing the seasons.
Precisely. And this meal produces their personal commitment device, their takeaway calendar. The bones are split to create year sticks. Each initiate gets 8 sticks, and each stick is scratched with the arrow sign, S4, perhaps representing directed time or the hunt.
Okay.
Connie takes these 8 sticks home. He's meant to burn one seasonally, or perhaps annually, until the next Aaron cycle arrives 8 years later. These sticks are his tangible calendar, his personal countdown to the next cosmic reboot.
Which culminates in the most counterintuitive act of all. Day 4, the burial.
This is the part that baffled archaeologists for so long. They carry clean limestone rubble, quarried nearby, and intentionally, painstakingly, fill the sacred basin. They bury the giant twin pillars up to their shoulders.
Why? Why bury your most sacred, most labor-intensive monument? It makes no sense from a, permanence perspective.
It makes perfect sense if the ritual's completion is the erasure. The narrative says the elders sing the burial song while this happens. And Connie's source tells us this song wasn't just chanting, it was a detailed list, a recalling of every major star that had risen since the last Urim ceremony 8 years prior.
Like a cosmological inventory check.
Exactly. They were accounting for the time that has passed, ensuring the cycle was correctly observed, and then they bury it. They are not abandoning the site. They are putting it to sleep, ritually sealing it to protect the purity of the successful cycle completion.
And Connie mentions they must not look back as they leave.
Yes, crucially. Do not look back, or you might undo the rebirth. You buy the continuation of time, the rebirth of the cosmos, by ritually burying the record of its symbolic death and renewal.
Connie's story closes, we understand, with him burning his final year stick 8 years later, just as his second son is born. He knows the cosmic cycle has been maintained, his oath fulfilled. That narrative gives us such a powerful insight into the motivation.
It really does. The why.
So now let's pivot, as you suggested earlier, to the hard science, the empirical skeleton that seems to prove this wasn't just elaborate storytelling. Section 2, the empirical skeleton archaeology and exclusion. We move from Connie's intimate narrative to the forensic analysis of the physical sites. Gobekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, Sebers, others in the Tas-Tepler complex.
Right. Let's look at the cold, hard facts on the ground. What patterns repeat? What's absolutely fixed across these sites, linking them together as one cohesive cultural project?
Okay, the invariant patterns, what are they?
First, the chronology. These sites are really tightly locked into a specific window. The pre-pottery Neolithic A to B transition, roughly 9600 to 8200 calendar BC. This wasn't some slow 1,000-year evolution. It looks like a single intense cultural explosion.
A relatively short burst of intense activity.
Very intense. Second, the location. You mentioned this earlier. Every single one of these major Tas-Tepler sites sits on a conspicuous, highly visible promontory, deliberately elevated, usually 15 to 40 meters above the surrounding wadis or plains.
Built to be seen, or built to see the sky?
Both, probably. They were constructed to interface with the horizon, with the sky, not hidden away in valleys. Third, the architecture is remarkably standardized. It's like they had a construction kit.
What's in the kit?
These bowl-shaped depressions cut directly into the bedrock, lined with dry stone walls, and of course the undisputed cultural signature.
The T-pillar grammar.
Exactly. The T-pillar is like the corporate logo for this entire culture, this region, this time. It's the invariant unit. And it's consistently abstract anthropomorphic.
Meaning it represents a human-like form.
Yes, but crucially, without a face. It almost always features arms depicted along the sides, hands meeting over the navel or belt area, often wearing a belt or loincloth. The lack of a face is key. It suggests these pillars aren't depicting specific individuals, chiefs or gods maybe, but rather an idealized, perhaps immortal ancestor template, the beings holding up the world.
And the gender code you mentioned, it's very specific.
Strikingly specific. We see carved phalli, sometimes disembodied like in the phallus chamber, sometimes on figures. We see bearded male heads like Amma. What we see virtually zero examples of are unambiguous depictions of female characteristics. Breasts or vulvae are conspicuously absent from the main monumental art.
Which strongly implies.
Well, it strongly supports Connie's narrative point. The core ritual constituency was likely male only, or at least male dominated in the primary rites. The ritual seemed very specific to male initiation, lineage, and the acceptance of this ancestral cosmic fate. Any theory that posits this as just a general community gathering place has to grapple with this extreme gender bias in the core iconography.
Okay, and the fauna set, the animals depicted.
Right. Critically, it's not just a random zoo representing their diet, it's a fixed mythological canon. Certain animals dominate overwhelmingly. Snake, fox, boar ox, and the vulture or large bird.
Those four again?
Yes.
Yeah.
And their frequency is statistically off the charts compared to other animals found in the environment. Plus, crucially, they often appear in a fixed clockwise order on the central pillars.
An order, like a sequence.
Exactly. That tells the archaeologist immediately. These aren't just pretty pictures of animals. They are essential components of a specific encoded narrative or system. They mean something in relation to each other.
Yet despite all this complexity, the organization, the art, the implied astronomy, the technology ceiling remains firmly Stone Age.
Pure hunter-gatherer technosphere. No definitive evidence of agriculture being practiced by the builders at this stage. No animal domestication. No pottery that comes later. No metal, obviously. Their primary toolkit is flint and some obsidian.
But they got that obsidian from far away.
Yes, that's another key point. They had the organization and, you could say, supply chain management to transport high-quality obsidian, which is vital for fine carving and sharp tools from sources up to 200 kilometers away, likely from the Bengal or Lake Van regions.
The logistics needed for quarrying massive stones, shaping them, erecting them, coordinating labor, and managing long-distance trade for specific materials. It rivals early settled city-states.
It does, yet their daily material culture, what we find, remains pre-Neolithic. It's another fascinating paradox.
And finally, the pattern that confirms Connie's story. The deposition rule, the burial.
This is the archaeological proof. Every single one of these enclosures, when excavated, was found to be intentionally backfilled. Not collapsed, not slowly silted over.
And filled with specific material.
Yes, filled with locally quarried, relatively clean sorted rubble. often limestone chips, the stuff they were quarrying to make the pillars, mixed with animal bones, sometimes ritually broken, and fleet tools. Crucially, it lacks the signs of gradual abandonment, like wind-blown sand layers or domestic trash.
It's the smoking gun, isn't it?
It really is. It confirms the closure was a systematic, programmed ritual act. It was the reboot mechanism Connie described. They finished the cycle, recorded it, then deliberately buried it.
Okay, so taking all these hard patterns together, the timeline, location, architecture, T-pillars, gender code, fixed fauna, tech level, and intentional burial, what common assumptions about Gobekli Tepe can we confidently exclude? What does the evidence rule out?
Well, first and foremost, we have to exclude the idea that these were permanent settlements, villages or towns. The sheer lack of domestic features is overwhelming.
No houses, no hearths.
Exactly. No large cooking hearths, no long-term storage pits, no significant garbage dumps or middens like you find in any settled village. The evidence points strongly to people living elsewhere, probably in smaller, more mobile camps, and traveling to these hilltop centers for specific scheduled events. Gobekli Tepe was a cathedral, maybe, not a city hall.
Okay, what else can we rule out?
We also have to exclude the simplistic idea that this was merely a calendar, just an observatory. While astronomical alignments are clearly integral, they are just one variable.
Right.
The incredibly complex iconographic program, the fixed narratives suggested by the animal sequences, the themes of death and rebirth, these are constant across different enclosures and even different sites, even when the specific astronomical sightlines might differ slightly due to location or orientation. The calendar was the tool for the ritual theater, not the entire script.
And it wasn't just a simple fertility cult either, despite the phallet.
Correct. As we saw with Connie's oath and the iconography itself, it was not a generic fertility cult. The felons are often disembodied, stark. They're frequently paired visually with symbols of death or predation, ribs, vultures, snakes. The emphasis seems to be on death and regeneration, the cyclical nature of life through death, rather than just a celebration of earthly reproduction. The cosmology is cyclical, sacrificial, and highly structured.
So if we strip away what it wasn't, what's the most straightforward, evidence-based model? The parsimonious reconstruction.
The minimal model that fits all the evidence is a regional male initiation cult, functioning as a kind of ritual theater. The T-pillar seems to be their core symbol, their identifier.
Okay.
Its members, likely drawn from hunter-gatherer groups across the region, met seasonally, or perhaps every 8 years for the major Erin, on these prominent hilltops. They gathered to reenact the mythic cycle, probably the death and rebirth of a key ancestor figure tied to the sun or cosmos.
Using the enclosures as stages.
Exactly. Using the sunken bedrock basins as world pits, maybe liminal zones for symbolic burial and rebirth rituals. And then the crucial final act, the sterile backfill. This represents erasure equals renewal, the programmed reset of cosmological time. Just as Connie swore not to look back, they physically erased the previous cycle to enable the next one.
That model fits the narrative and the archaeology perfectly. The ritual is the reset button. Okay, this brings us to section 3. Let's put these pieces together and look at the actual cosmic code they were using. The cosmic blueprint, the 4-constellation proto-zodiac.
Right. This is where we see the evidence for truly profound scientific or maybe proto-scientific sophistication. The hypothesis, which has gained a lot of traction and evidence, is that those dominant animals, the snake, fox, boar, bird, aren't just random symbols. They are the fixed points of a 12,000-year-old proto-zodiac.
A proto-zodiac, like an early version of the zodiac we know.
Sort of, but much earlier and simpler. A precise 4-constellation seasonal cross that they used to structure and manage their timekeeping and cosmology.
So we filter the huge bestiary down to those 4 key players: snake, fox, boar ox, and that bending bird or vulture figure, because they're statistically overrepresented, appear in a fixed order.
And critically, they fit specific astronomical correlations, and this is where precession comes in.
Precession, that's the slow wobble of the Earth's axis.
Exactly. It takes about 26,000 years for one full wobble. And what it does is slowly change which star or constellation marks the position of the sun at key points like the equinoxes and solstices. It's like the background star map is slowly rotating behind the yearly solar cycle.
So if you know the animals, and you suspect they mark the seasons, you can use precession calculations to find the date when those specific animals aligned with those seasons.
Precisely. You can essentially rewind the sky. And when you do that for the testicular animals, they lock into place, marking the 4 cardinal points of the year around 10,850 BC. Give or take a century or so.
Okay, let's map the sky for that specific ancient moment. What aligns where?
Okay, around 10,850 BC, spring. The snake representing Scorpius and maybe Ophiuchus, is rising heliacally, meaning just before the sun at dawn during the vernal equinox. This perfectly matches Cunny's observation of Antares, the snake's heart, hitting the horizon to start the year.
Got it. Spring is the snake. Summer.
Summer. The FOX, which corresponds best to Aquarius, the water bearer in later zodiacs, is setting just before dawn at the summer solstice. This links perfectly back to the fox track path, S8, the water sign, and suggests the fox controls the vital summer rains or water sources.
Summer's the fox.
Yeah.
Autumn.
Autumn. The Bibo A or Bullel figure aligns with Capricornus, which is setting in the west at dusk during the autumn equinox. This matches the timing of the ritual hunt with the boar mask and the eating of the year, marking the seasonal closure and the need for stored sustenance.
Autumn is the boar bull, which leaves winter.
Winter. The bending bird or vulture figure corresponds to the area of Pisces and Pegasus. This constellation group is setting prominently in the west at dusk during the winter solstice. The moment of the sun's lowest ebb, the longest night, corresponding exactly to the symbolic death ritual at the Hole of Souls, S5.
Snake, fox, boar, bird, spring, summer, autumn, winter, locked in around 10,850 BC. And the genius is these four constellations are roughly 90 degrees apart along the ecliptic, the sun's path.
They form a near-perfect celestial cross. It's the most efficient, minimal set of markers you'd need to track the entire annual cycle with observational precision. Just 4 key signposts in the sky.
But why that specific date? Why lock their entire system onto circa 10,850 BC? Was it just an arbitrary starting point?
The evidence suggests not arbitrary at all. This calendar engine, this whole cosmology, appears to have been founded on, or profoundly shaped by, a specific anchor event. The Younger Dryas impact event, or at least the climate catastrophe that marks the start of the Younger Dryas period.
Whoa, wait. The Younger Dryas, that was a sudden, dramatic return to near ice age conditions around that time, right? A major global climate shock.
Exactly. And the dating fits. Crucially, astronomical reconstructions show that around 10,850 BC, the autumn equinox sun stood precisely in the constellation Capricornus the Boar Bull.
So the catastrophe, the climate shift, happened when the sun was symbolically in the house of their autumn boar figure.
That seems to be the link. They built their entire long-term calendar, their reboot cycle, their rituals, their architecture, possibly to memorialize, maybe even to ritually manage the aftermath of this global catastrophe that occurred under that specific celestial alignment.
They built their world order in response to cosmic disorder?
It looks that way. And the proof, proponents argue, is carved right into the stone. The memorial code on Pillar 43 at Gobekli Tepe, often called the Vulture Stone.
Okay, tell us about Pillar 43. Why is it considered a memorial code, a snapshot?
Because it appears to be a precise stellar map, a snapshot of the sky during or immediately after the Younger Dryas onset, specifically at the vernal equinox sunrise around 10,850 BC. It arranges those 4 key animals, snake, fox, boar, bird vulture, in a specific right-to-left sequence above a semicircle representing the horizon or the sun, and critically there's a headless human figure depicted, suggesting mass death or catastrophe.
A cosmic photograph of the disaster date.
Essentially, yes. And the vulture, often associated with death in the sky, is prominent. Some interpretations even suggest the circle held by the vulture represents the sun, and its position relative to the animals encodes the date.
And Pillar 43 has other symbols too, doesn't it? Not just the animals.
Yes. Crucially, it also features multiple examples of signs we see elsewhere, including the H sign, S1, balance equinox, and the crescent dot, S2, New Year moon. And some researchers point to the small carvings on the pillar, potentially representing commentary fragments. The interpretation is that the pillar is a complex commemorative plaque of the event that triggered their entire system.
Wow. And the archaeoastronomical tests. Do specific alignments at the sites back this up?
They do seem to line up quite convincingly. For example, the main central pillars in enclosure D at Gobekli Tepe, where Pillar 43 is located, align very closely to the Sirius heliacal rising, the first dawn rising of the bright star. Sirius as it would have occurred around the vernal equinox in that 11th millennium BC timeframe.
Sirius as a marker star.
Perhaps a key signal star, maybe representing the soul or the start of the count. And then at Karahan Tepe, the Karkacha statue, the ancestor figure with the exposed ribs, is positioned on an axis that precisely faces the midsummer sunrise point.
Which is the fox quadrant in their system.
Exactly. So the entire seasonal cross seems embedded not just in the symbols, but in the physical orientation of the architecture relative to the sun and key stars at that specific epoch.
And you mentioned this code lasted a long time.
That's perhaps one of the most incredible parts. At the site of Sabres, there's a later PPNB carving, dated perhaps closer to 8,000 or 7,000 BC, showing a narrative scene. A figure flanked by lepers facing a large bull. While the style is different, the underlying logic, a human figure interacting with potent animal symbols, likely tied to seasons or cosmic power, seems to persist. It suggests the core cosmological ideas, maybe the four-quadrant system, survive for millennia, possibly adapting as the sky slowly precessed.
They were passing down this foundational knowledge system for potentially thousands of years. Okay, we've gone from the ritual story to the physical evidence to the astronomical code. Let's get into section 4, the written code and the flow of time. How do they actually manage this complex system day to day or year to year? What specific language did they use?
Well, it seems the Tostepler culture employed a sophisticated, though likely limited signary. A set of distinct symbols. Current research identifies maybe 12 to 20 core glyphs that repeat across sites.
Okay, so not full writing like Sumerian cuneiform?
No, not a script capable of recording spoken language in full sentences, but definitely more than just decoration. It appears to be a calendrical religious code, a specialized logographic or symbolic system where each glyph had a specific meaning related to time, cosmology, or ritual action. And importantly, they could be combined. To have the astronomical key, the glyphs start to function like a specialized script for managing their cosmic calendar.
Let's break down some of the key glyphs. You mentioned S1 and S2 on the pillars earlier.
Right. S1 is the H sign. It looks like a capital H. Given its placement, often between the central pillars or on equinox-aligned stones, it almost certainly represents equinox or balance, cosmic equilibrium.
Makes sense. And S2?
S2 is the crescent shape with a dot underneath or inside. This one seems explicitly tied to New Year, specifically the sighting of the first crescent moon nearest to the spring equinox. This shows they understood the need to anchor their solar year observations with the lunar cycle to keep the timing right, especially for an 8-year system.
Okay, what about the darker symbols? S5?
S5 is the cupule or drilled hole symbol. We saw it physically as the soul hole. As a glyph, it consistently appears in the context of winter or the nadir, means nadir, lowest point, or soul gate.
And its placement backs that up.
Absolutely. It often appears in the lower sections of pillars or associated with the winter solstice quadrant where constellations like Pegasus, the bending bird, are culminating or setting. It's a map point for the lowest phase of the cosmic cycle.
And the most explicit timekeeping symbol.
S10. S10 is the V symbol, sometimes a chevron. And crucially, as seen on the Gargantua statue's belt, it's often repeated, specifically 8 times. This directly encodes the 8-year count. It is the marker for the lunisolar cycle length, the Erin itself.
The sheer brilliance is how they combine these. The grammar in stone. The positioning matters as much as the glyph.
Absolutely. There's a spatial syntax. Horizontally, across a pillar or panel, the signs often denote the seasonal sequence. You might see S2, New Year, leading to S3, a sign possibly meaning zenith or solstice, then perhaps S4, the arrow sign, maybe harvest or the kill, and finally S5, nadir winter. It reads like a timeline across the stone face.
A seasonal progression. And vertically.
Vertically, the grammar often seems to denote an ascent trajectory. You might start low down with S5, the whole nadir, move up past S6, often interpreted as an axis mundi or world pillar symbol, culminating perhaps near the top with S11, a stylized human figure, the observer or initiate. The pillar itself becomes a cosmological ladder you climb through the year or through initiation.
Wow, and there's redundancy built in too.
Yes, a very important redundancy rule. It seems every key animal symbol is almost always paired with its specific sign partner. For example, the snake reliefs are frequently found near S7, a sign often interpreted as ascent or emergence. The fox reliefs are associated with S8, the zigzag watermark.
Why the redundancy?
It ensures the meaning is stable. It makes the code robust against misinterpretation. If you see the snake, you know it relates to a scent spring. If you see the zigzag, it reinforces the Foxwater summer connection. It helps preserve the system's integrity over the long 8-year cycle and even across generations.
So when we look at these carved panels, especially the complex ones like Pillar 43, we aren't just looking at cool animal pictures. We're looking at, what did you call them? Stellar comic strips.
Or dated sky photographs, essentially. They're forensic records.
So Pillar 43 again, a snapshot of the 10,850 BC vernal equinox sunrise.
Yes, potentially depicting the key constellations in their positions relative to the sun horizon. And some researchers, when they modeled that precise sky scene, noted that the sun disk seems depicted just below the horizon line marker on the pillar.
Okay.
which is exactly where the sun would be during a total solar eclipse viewed at sunrise from that latitude at that time. It's speculative, but it raises the incredible possibility that the Younger Dryas event they were memorializing was associated with, or marked by, a terrifying total solar eclipse, adding another layer to the catastrophe.
Mind-blowing. And the Karahan niche with the big statue and the vulture carving.
It seems to confirm the complementary scene, the summer solstice of that same year zero. It locked in the entire annual cycle to that specific, potentially traumatic founding moment. They weren't just illustrating myths vaguely. They were illustrating ephemerides, astronomical tables carved in stone, so that future generations, the initiates of the next errand, could reset their cosmic clock with precision, perhaps confidence, anchored to that founding event.
This level of detail, this need for precision, brings us to maybe the most unique piece of engineering evidence found outside the main sanctuaries, the channels of time. Kani's narrative mentioned him becoming a mazu, a water watcher.
Yes, responsible for maintaining this network. And the physical evidence is astonishing. It's called the Nahu Sharon Network kilometers of precisely hand-cut U-section limestone conduits running across the landscape, particularly noted between Gobekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe.
Nahu Sharon, the snake that drinks time.
That's the suggested translation. And these are definitely not irrigation channels. The area didn't support agriculture then, and the channels don't lead to fields. They connect the ritual sites.
So what was their purpose? The source suggests three functions.
Yes, three interconnected ritual functions. First, they acted as a calendrical clock, a water clock. The engineering seems incredibly precise. The slope, the width, the U-shaped cross-section, they appear carefully calculated so that water flowing through them would fill specific basins or markers at a set rate. One hypothesis is that a particular basin might fill to the brim in exactly one lunar month.
The flow of water across the land is literally tracking the phases of the moon.
That's the idea.
Yep.
Which is absolutely essential if you're trying to manage an 8-year lunisolar calendar, reconciling the solar year with the lunar months needed for intercalation. The landscape itself becomes a giant, slow-moving timepiece.
That is just profound. The landscape is the clock. What's the second function?
An initiation gate or ordeal. Kani described this right. Candidates might have had to walk the wet line at night barefoot along the edge of the water-filled channel, crucially without breaking the moon's reflection shimmering in the water.
Why not break the reflection?
Breaking the reflection would mean breaking the cosmic connection, the balance. This act is like a living, moving representation of the H sign, S1. The initiate has to physically walk the line of balance between the real world under their feet and the mirrored sky world in the water. Failure means you're not ready, not balanced yourself.
Wow. Okay. And the third function, the most visceral one.
Soul transport. This connects back to the ritual burial. The idea is that when an enclosure was ritually closed or buried at the end of a seren, the water channels connected to it might be deliberately suddenly flooded.
A flush.
Exactly, a ritual flush. This surge of water would carry away the residue of the completed cycle, perhaps literally carrying the red ochre used in the ceremonies, representing the spent year's blood, down from the summit basins through the channel network, potentially directed towards those soul hole S5 features or specific fissures in the karst limestone bedrock.
Washing the soul of the old year down into the underworld.
Precisely. The water carries the memory, the essence of the spent year away, purifying the sacred precinct for the next cycle to begin clean. Kani's oath as a mazu to guard the flow without ever blocking it with my own shadow highlights the almost religious importance of keeping this hydraulic mechanism functioning perfectly.
Don't let your own ego, your shadow, impede the flow of time.
Exactly. They seem to believe that stone forgets eventually, but water remembers the shape of time. If the channel's clogged, if the water stopped flowing correctly,
The calendar breaks down.
worse, the sky animals arrive late. The cosmic order stumbles. The connection is broken. Chaos might return.
So the fear of the clogged channel, the fear of an unreborn year, that's the driving force behind the whole elaborate 8-year reboot cycle. It connects everything, the astronomy, the symbolic death, the intentional burial, the water engineering into one single comprehensive system designed purely to maintain cosmic order.
It completely flips our usual understanding of how complexity arises, doesn't it? It suggests that this immense communal effort, this proto-scientific management of time and cosmology, wasn't a luxury activity enabled by surplus from farming. It might have been a perceived cultural necessity, driven by the trauma of past cosmic disruption and the fear of it returning.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together. A final synthesis of what Toshtepler represents.
Okay. In essence, Toshtepler appears to have been a sophisticated calendrical mystery cult. Its initiates, likely predominantly male hunter-gatherers from a wide region, utilized a precise four-animal sky map anchored to a catastrophic event around 10,850 BC to ritually reenact the death and rebirth of the solar year in cosmic order.
And the key mechanism.
The key mechanism was the 8-year Aaron cycle. By ritually burying the sanctuary spaces and meticulously resetting the calendrical system, possibly using water clocks every 8 years, they believed they were systematically rebooting cosmic time, ensuring its continuation and managing the delicate synchronization between the sun and the moon.
So the grand takeaway for you, listening to this, is perhaps the sheer, unexpected level of scientific and organizational sophistication these hunter-gatherers demonstrated 12,000 years ago.
Absolutely. They didn't just passively observe the stars. They actively engineered their landscape, their architecture, their art, and their rituals to perfectly mirror and interact with celestial mechanics. They codified a fixed, complex proto-zodiac and cosmology thousands of years before the supposedly first civilizations of Mesopotamia developed theirs.
It really challenges the narrative that complex religion, large-scale social cooperation, and deep cosmological thinking only arose after agriculture and settled life.
It strongly suggests these things might have actually predated widespread farming in this region. That this intense focus on cosmic order wasn't a product of settled life's leisure time, but perhaps the very mechanism that created the social cohesion and shared worldview necessary for the Neolithic Revolution to eventually take hold there.
Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought, spinning out from Conestozer and that deliberate ritual burial, that erasure. What does it really mean for a society, for a culture, to prioritize cosmic memory keeping through incredibly laborious stone carvings, precise water channels, and ritual burial over establishing permanent, comfortable domestic settlements?
It's a fascinating question. Did they consciously fear that settling down, building permanent villages with houses, and accumulating everyday trash would somehow make them complacent? Make them forget the precision, forget the catastrophe, forget the vital importance of the 8-year reboot that their entire worldview was founded upon.
Maybe that intense cyclical ritual complexity wasn't a luxury afforded by settlement, but was actually seen as a necessary, demanding, temporary sacrifice. A way to keep the world running, performed away from the distractions of permanent living, specifically to avoid the dreaded return of cosmic collapse. Something to think about.